Hey everyone, we've got another Dark Pixel news update for you, and this one centers around some stuff that Nomura showed off at the Monaco Anime Game International Conference. Man, there's actually a lot to go over. It's kind of crazy. We were all hoping for a trailer, we were all hoping for a release date. I know that Kingdom Hearts 3 and Final Fantasy VII. The good news is, he did show off parts from both of those games at this, we're just going to call it the Magic conference, because that's kind of what it all stands for. That's what everyone's calling it. But he did not show any video. He didn't show us how things move, how everything works, the way, the interaction in the battles, because it seems to have changed a little bit, at least in Final Fantasy VII's case, from what we saw a couple years back as they were showcasing the battle kind of in that video at PlayStation's Experience kind of show. This is the very first screenshot. So the most important thing to note, actually, I'm just going to kind of switch between these two, if that's all right with you guys, because there's a lot of similarities and a lot of differences as we go between these two shots that I kind of want to point out. For instance, right here, we've got this attack command, right? And the limit, for Cloud at least, is not completely full. But when we come here, all of a sudden, look, there's a little caret here. There's a little menu selection, and as we can see, his limit is full. And so that points to some things. We'll go over everything later. But I just kind of want to let you know we're going to be switching between these photos as we go. So the ATB meter exists. Now this is crazy because as we look back on kind of the original views, the original battle that they showed us back, a year and a half ago, there was not an ATB meter. We had limit break, we had limit, we had MP, we had HP, Cloud. I mean, I don't know exactly what this is. This could have been an ATB meter, right? Okay, so I want to show you guys something here. We've got the battle going, and this is what the battle used to look like, right? It used to look like this. Now you can see that meter under Cloud and Barrett's name. As they attack, that meter goes up until it turns red. Now that's really interesting because it's not a meter counting down, but it is not an ATB meter. That's the important takeaway from that. It's not an ATB meter. It wasn't, at least. Now it is labeled, I believe, right here specifically. You can read the letters ATB. Now this meter functions very differently from the meter that we saw before. I mean, we haven't seen it in action, but it looks very different. You've got this going all the way up. As this one gets filled, you've got 3 notches here. And each notch, we don't know exactly what that means, but I would believe that it means that you can kind of save up these attacks, that you build up your ATB to a certain level where you can kind of do maybe 3 attacks in a row if you wait long enough without attacking or something. Now, something very interesting that we can see here is that above Cloud's head, there's a triangle, a green triangle, right? Now, I've played enough Kingdom Hearts to know what that likely means from a Tetsuya Nomura video game. So his limit is not all the way up, so it's not a limit break that we're seeing here. But what we can see is that his ATB has gone up enough to where one of these notches is now highlighted. And so what I believe is that is what is enabling this triangle attack to be done here. Now, it's not just the X attack, right? Now, that's a very important, I think, to distinguish, that it may be possible that the X attack can't always be done. You push the attack button, he goes forward, and he does his attacks, and he can keep doing those until your ATB builds up. And so the ATB isn't just your active time for doing a normal attack. In this case, it could be your active time for doing maybe a more special attack. Not magic, not your limit break, but a special attack that could possibly be dictated by the materia that you have on. I don't know. A lot of this is going to be speculation here, but what we know for sure is that there's an ATB meter, a lever is lit up, and there is an action icon above Cloud's head. Now, you do not see that icon in this screenshot, for example. He can attack. This right here, we'll kind of go over what this says in Japanese, but it basically is kougeki. So, target ni kougeki o shimasu, which means attack the target, basically. Or not attack, it's not telling you to attack the target. It is saying this option will attack the target. It's not like This isn't text telling you what to do. This is text telling what will happen if you select this option, right? You will then attack the target. So it's really interesting to note, though, that his ATB is all the way down. There are no notches at the moment, and there is no triangle. And so what that leads me to believe is that the triangle comes from these notches, and it is executing a special attack. So in that sense, we have ATB. We don't have ATB maybe the way we want it, or maybe not the way that it was, right? It's not how the game used to function in that regard. But the ATB does exist, possibly, in my opinion, for special attacks. So, moving on from that, we've got switchable party members. Now, I believe that has already been confirmed, but we can see now from the menu that here it's not just that Cloud's is bigger and blue and Barrett's is small and gray. Typically, as we see here, the gray means that you can't select something, and then the blue means those things are selectable. And because that same motif is being shown over here, it's likely that you select Cloud and you can switch to Barrett. I don't know how. I don't know if you can do it at any time during battle. I don't know when that will be a possibility. But at least here, it seems as though you can switch between Cloud and Barrett. Okay, I'm noticing here now the ATB has the notch here and the arrow pointing to this. So this is clearly an attack. That's kind of what we're seeing here. This is saying this is a specific type of attack. In fact, okay, this is a word. This is a word that I had to look up in the dictionary, and it's not there. It's not in the dictionary. This does not appear to be an actual... this might be a made-up word. I know a lot of video games, like the Monster Hunter series and certain other RPGs specifically, they'll make up names for their attacks, right? And when you don't have a phonetically based system, like, you know, English is phonetic, you may not know a word, but you can at least sound it out. Here, and this is clearly because I didn't grow up in Japan, so maybe Japanese people do know how to sound this out. I, however, do not. This specific attack seems to indicate to me an intense, like an extra powerful attack, kind of like we were saying before. This is a special attack. The kanji here means specifically intense, attack, murder. So we might be dealing with the equivalent of a finishing blow here, of like a really powerful attack. And as you can see, the ATB is pointing directly towards the triangle, which will enable you to execute a level 1 version. Very important to recognize that you can now level up these types of attacks. They can get more powerful as well. Not just it's not just the same attack every time. You can do more powerful finishing blows, or I maybe shouldn't say finishing blow, because it looks like the Scorpion has a lot of health, and I doubt that this attack's going to finish him, right? But I don't really know what else to call it. It's just a powerful special attack. So you can highlight and switch. Maybe once Barrett gets his and he has a notch or two filled up, you can switch to him, and you can utilize those more strategically. I don't know. He also has a limit going here that he doesn't appear as though he's used it yet. He's just kind of shooting. There could be maybe a gambit system like in Final Fantasy XII. I don't know exactly how your party members are going to act without you telling them what to do. But from what I can gather here, Barrett will just kind of wait until you tell him to do certain things, and then he'll do them. It's possible that you can automate that somehow. But at least in the sense that you can kind of have a little more control, you can tell these people exactly what to do. I like that. I'm really drawn towards, combat systems where you can switch between the people, and you don't have to control one person and have your allies either be too strong and win the battle for you, or too weak to where they're not doing anything and you're having to do everything. So this seems like it could be a good balance for that. So the limit meter is separate from the ATB. So these are separate meters, right? So the limit goes up. If we're following Final Fantasy VII correctly, the limit will go up as you get hit, as you take damage. Whereas the ATB just goes up with the time that you spend, not doing attacks or anything. And you can build these up. So we've already gone over the notches. Now, this is really interesting because if this is active time, it means that meter is going up all of the time. Anytime you're not attacking, that meter is building up. And so we come over here to this shot, and this is reminiscent of Final Fantasy XV to me. I look at Cloud hiding behind a box while someone's shooting at him, and it harkens back to a lot of the gameplay and a lot of especially the trailers and a lot of what Tabata was talking about with the combat in Final Fantasy 15, saying you will attack for a while, and then you might need to go and find cover and recover for a little bit before you go out and attack again. It's kind of a not necessarily cat and mouse, but it's a hide, attack, right? And so when I see Cloud hiding while someone's attacking him, and look at his ATB meter, it is down. It is not just mostly down, it is all the way down. He either just did an attack, or there may be some issue. There may be something where, as you can see here, his limit break is flashing. It is like all the way up. It's glowing now. So he can use his limit. And it may be that he has to use his limit. His ATB is not, it is all the way down. He either just did an attack, just barely used up that whole meter, and that's when the screenshot was taken, which it doesn't look like, I have to say. Because the enemy is still fine, the enemy's shooting at him, he's hiding from the enemy. It does not appear as though he's just done an attack, especially since he has a sword. I mean, he's so far away. He could have done magic, but then look here, his magic meter is also all the way up. He has full magic. He did not just use a magic attack. And because he has a sword, it's possibly used an item. He could have thrown a grenade, and now he's hiding, waiting for it to go off. Where the grenade is, I can't see it, but Nomura did talk about grenades, so that's a possibility, but it looks more to me like his ATB meter's down, and it's going to be down for a little while. It's waiting for something before it starts going up. And that something, I would suggest, could be this limit break. His limit is all the way up. He has a little caret here that we talked about kind of at the beginning of the video, and this will enable him to kind of select which limit break he'll use, or possibly to not use his limit break, to save it and to just use a regular attack. But this menu, and we're not seeing what's written here, but this menu would suggest to me that you will be able to then kind of switch and go through. And because his ATB is all the way down, he may need to... he may have to use the limit break in order to continue with the battle. Now, I know certain Final Fantasies kind of force you to do that. I know even in Final Fantasy VII, you could not attack, but at least you had the option to defend or use magic or use an item instead of your limit break, but you could not do a regular attack while your limit was full and flashing. So this could be a kind of just a different version of that, where they're not letting you do certain things because your limit is full and you have to use it now, even though there's only one like lowly Shinra soldier and you might want to save this up for the Scorpion boss. Anyways, I don't really know, but I wouldn't put it past Square Enix because they have done things like that in the past. So it is possible, and Mike, as me and Mike were kind of talking about this, we were talking about these 3 notches here with ATB, that either it could represent, as you build them up, 3 separate attacks, or it could represent more power to a single attack. So as you build up this ATB and don't use it, and you get 1 notch, when it goes up again and you get a second notch, it could also mean that you are doing the same special attack, but with more damage, with greater impact. And that could lend itself to maybe not attacking for a while, or not just using it right when you get it. Because especially if enemies can shield, or if there's certain times when enemies are more vulnerable than others, and you'll want to build that up so that when that happens, you can have a more powerful attack. That can play into a lot of the strategy that is sometimes missing in action RPG games. So we've already discussed kind of the triangle above Cloud, but I have to say, with this triangle, with the menu on the left, looking at everything on the right, and how you can kind of occasionally you can do a more powerful attack, but it's not quite a limit break. That happens later. This is looking like Kingdom Hearts. I mean, tell me I'm wrong. Look at this 4 items, 4 options: magic, materia, item. I mean, I can't, let's just click this real quick and go to the Kingdom Hearts 3 screenshot they've shown. Tatakao is attack. Maho would be like magic. This is Itemu. He can't use an item right now. Don't know why. And then Rinku, Link, right? So we're looking at a very similar item-based, a very similar options system to the Kingdom Hearts games. Not to mention, if any of you guys played 2.8, or honestly, just a lot of the Kingdom Hearts do this, but this triangle system for when you can execute a special attack, I mean, This is Kingdom Hearts, you guys. This is straight up Kingdom Hearts, and the limit going up. Now, this is one thing. We've talked about the 3 notches in the ATB. We have not yet talked about the 3 notches in the limit break. I find that fascinating. I don't know why it's there. I can go back here. This is the old once again. And sorry, I took a screenshot at a pretty intense time here. But you can look at the bottom right. The limit break, it's a solid bar. It's not broken up into a bunch of pieces, 3 different pieces. It's just a solid, this is the limit break. And so we can see how that's changed now. Here, it's 3 separate ones. As you see, Barrett's got it full. But it does not appear as though you can use it until it's full. So it's entirely possible that they're changing the limit system up and that you're going to be able to maybe use part of a limit break at certain different times strategically without having to wait for it to be completely full. Now, I don't know that for sure. I don't know what the use of that would be. I don't know exactly why it's split up into 3, but there's got to be a reason for it, right? I doubt you can do 3 limit breaks in a row. I don't think that's how it's going to work. But this has to enable something when you get 1 full bar out of 3 of the limit filled up. It's got to let you do something. But this would be a drive form, right? In Kingdom Hearts. You got your drive form, you've got your special triangle attacks that do a little more powerful, but it's not. And then you've got your just normal attacks and this whole command you shift with R and L. I mean, this is looking so much like Kingdom Hearts. Luckily, I'm a fan of Kingdom Hearts. I think a lot of people aren't going to be upset about this, but to turn Final Fantasy VII into, and the battle system specifically, into something, it resembles something that came out quite a bit later. I could see some people having an issue with that. Personally, I feel like Kingdom Hearts battle system is pretty good. It's pretty well fleshed out, and obviously Nomura likes it a lot, being the one who kind of made it, right? So this isn't really a problem, but it is different. And a lot of people complain that Kingdom Hearts games maybe are a little on the easier end, especially with button mashing and with just kind of, you don't really need to learn how to use magic or some of the other forms. You just kind of get really powerful and just kind of mash the X button a lot. And it seems as though they may be doing things to kind of mitigate that, but that is entirely a possibility. But I never did this in Kingdom Hearts, all right? You don't take cover. You don't hide from enemies in Kingdom Hearts, okay? You go up and you attack them as soon as you can, and you roll and dodge and shield. And so this right here suggests to me that, yeah, there is going to be a little bit of depth in this battle system here that we're not necessarily seeing, or that we don't see in Kingdom Hearts, right? Now, Kingdom Hearts is wonderful. It's got a very complex battle system in many different ways, especially if you want to learn how to use everything properly. Like, it's wonderful. But you don't necessarily have to. You can get through the game okay just by mashing the attack button, and, I mean, you're probably not going to beat all the secret bosses at the end of Kingdom Hearts 2. You probably won't make it all the way through the Colosseum and defeat Sephiroth, but you'll do pretty well. You can beat the game that way. This game, what Cloud's doing here suggests to me that is not necessarily going to be an option. You will have to wait. His ATB meter is completely down. You are going to have to be more strategic about what you do in this game in order to just make it to the next point. So I like what I'm seeing here. I like that they're putting a little bit of that Kingdom Hearts flair in here, but it also kind of resembles kind of what they were doing in Final Fantasy 15. Now, would I have preferred just a straight up, typical turn-based RPG? Absolutely. But that's just not going to happen from Square now. So given what we know and given what they've taken from other successful games that they've made, I like it. It seems to be coming together just fine. Gotta specify once again, this is all speculation. We don't know exactly what is being shown here. But by going through between these screenshots and specifically the ones that they showed a year and a half ago at PSX, we can really come to see, especially in the menu here, this is completely different, you guys. This is completely different. Look, we have attack, we have magic, we have summon. That's not in the screenshots Nomura just showed. We have items, fine. We have defend. What? Defend. Okay, so what this shows me, this makes me think that maybe, and this is how Kingdom Hearts works, so I'm going to say that because what we've seen from Nomura so far here, resembles Kingdom Hearts so well, defend used to be an option, but in Kingdom Hearts you push the square button, right? And that is your defend or dodge, or it's your mechanic that kind of enables you to do that without having to go through a menu and select defend, right? And it's entirely possible that they determined that that was the best way to go here. So defend, while it's not an option here, could still be something that Cloud does. You just need to be timely about it. It's assigned to a specific button now, as opposed to being part of your menu. So that's crazy. I mean, it's crazy that it even was part of the menu here. It fits in with the menus of Final Fantasy VII, of course. They had the, defend was its own thing kind of at the bottom here. But with the action RPG system they're going for, you just don't need to do that anymore. You can assign it to the square button, and depending on if you're moving or standing still, it will either shield or dodge. That's what I kind of take from this. So Nomura, he wanted to show a video, but Square Enix would not let him do it. And I don't know how much he's just kind of putting blame on them, or how much they asked him and said, hey, yeah, just blame us for why you can't show a video. It's possibly the executive team just gave him permission to blame them, because seeing what has changed here, right? Nomura specifically talked about the menu. The menu system is different. It's not set in stone yet. This is not exactly what we're going to be seeing later, which is part of why this is all speculation as to how any of this even works in the first place. Because we don't know. Nomura could decide to completely change everything, and I don't think Square Enix wants to show portions of this game and show how they function and then have it be different when we get the final version. Now, obviously, they already did that with the PlayStation Experience trailer back in 2015, and what we're seeing now is different. And trying to parse through this info and figure out what's different and what's still going to be the same is I don't know, it's different, but it's confusing. And I think they want to make sure that they have this menu, they have the battle system, they have the UI completely down before they show anything. So Nomura did not have permission to show a video here. So you cycle between left and right. We've already talked about that. We looked at Crisis Core a little bit. Mike kind of busted out his PSP, played that game for about 3 minutes, and remembered that their slot system was just freaking ridiculous. But this seems to be quite different from the way that Crisis Core worked. However, this materia option is very interesting to me, because Crisis Core on the bottom right, they had your materias, and you could assign 6 materia to your guy, and you can kind of pick which ones you do a normal attack, or you use some of the magic or summons or other things that the materia enable you to do. Now, that's not completely an option per se in the original Final Fantasy VII, but here we see this materia option signifying that you can change materia just on the go. Now, one thing to note, it is grayed out. You cannot select this in the middle of a battle. And that's where I'm going to kind of go out on a limb here and say the only reason this is grayed out is because you're in the middle of a battle, and changing materia during battle doesn't make sense in the first place. But, I mean, it may be strategic, you may want to do it, but to really sit down, I don't know how materia works exactly in this world. We'll figure it out. But in Final Fantasy VII, it appeared that materia, your weapons had materia slots, right? And so you'd have to get down and take materia out of your sword and put it somewhere, take another, and that just doesn't make sense to do it in the heat of battle. Now with this other screenshot, it's also grayed out. You can't switch materia, but look, he's targeting an enemy. First of all, as we can read it clearly in the Japanese here, it says, attack the target. He's targeting this guy, and this guy's clearly targeting him because look at all the bullet shots, right? And so we can see that he's in the middle of battle in both of these screenshots. And I don't know if the materia option will only become available once the battle is over, once you're no longer in danger, once no one's targeting you, once you're not targeting anyone else, or if it stays grayed out for a while. Because Mike brought up an interesting point. You actually cannot use or change up your materia, I should rather say, in Final Fantasy VII during the initial stages of the game, during the first hour or two, during the first mission. It is not an option in the menu until after Cloud explains it, basically. Cloud's explaining materia to his team and to Barrett and to people, and he's saying, hey, this is how you use materia. And then you can go into the options and you can kind of mix and match and kind of switch up the materia. And so since we're still seeing kind of the early stage of the game here, this is the first boss. This is the scorpion thing when you're planting the bomb and you got to turn around and he comes up behind you. This is the very beginning of the game. And this right here kind of is reminiscent of that as well. So it could be it's only grayed out because you just can't use it yet. Cloud hasn't explained it. The tutorial for that hasn't happened yet. They aren't letting you do it. Because as Cloud is hiding here, clearly as he's hiding and he's taking cover, he could use materia now, right? This is the perfect time, if there was going to be any during battle, when switching out materia would make sense. But it's still grayed out. So that could just be because we're still at the beginning of the game and they just haven't gone over that yet. But once they do, then it will become an option that you can actually select. Interesting thing to note, that materia option was not in the early version of the game. It has been replaced, or it replaced the summon option here. And so, and this is still an early stage of the game, by the way. And this summon option, I mean, they're all gray. So I don't know whether or not these things were even really possible at any point for this whole thing. But it is interesting to note that they're different. So, moving on here now, we've got the Scorpion. He's shooting, there's these circles here. This clearly is meant to be where the fire is falling. He's shooting missiles up into the air or things are falling. Nomura talked about how there's going to be destructible environments in this game, specifically during the battles. And as things are falling, we have all of these target places. And it would seem to me, especially as you can see Cloud running away from kind of the circle here, that this is like a damage radius. And as long as you can get out of this one, you'll take the least amount of damage. You won't take any out here. You'll take some here, a little more here, and this is a direct hit. You don't want this, right? And so that's what it looks like to me, and you can see they're kind of everywhere. So this particular battle may have a strategy. It could be, laser. It could be something to deal with the tail of the Scorpion guard robot thing. But we don't know exactly what it is, but it does seem to be a part of the battlefield you do not want to be standing in when whatever it's there for happens, right? Barrett, you can see he's in the clear. Cloud is getting out. He was probably somewhere over here. He's leaving. You're trying to avoid these parts. So that could, the environment that you're battling in could play a crucial role in the strategy that you need to employ when fighting enemies, and particularly bosses, which is really cool because as we talk about, since they're using the Kingdom Hearts system and they're trying to make it more strategic. They're trying to throw these things in ATB and you have to hide and take cover sometimes. They're trying to make it a little more interactive, but at the same time, they don't want to leave the simplicity. They don't want to leave that Kingdom Hearts system because it works so well. And so this is a great way to do it by changing up the environment, having things around you change, and that is how you have to employ additional strategies in order to keep from getting hit. So it's possible there's a dodging mechanic. We kind of talked about the square button. It's just so weird. I just find it strange that there is even a materia option here in general. But okay, moving on. So this game looks really good. It looks really good, but I have some gripes, okay? And this is probably with Unreal Engine 4. I don't know exactly what's going on here, but look around. You guys, you're not going to be able to see it all that well in my video, okay? But if you can find these images, open them up and zoom in as much as you can. And, I can zoom in here. It looks bad because I'm zooming in, but look at Cloud, okay? And seriously, just find these images yourself if you think that YouTube compression is the reason for this. All right, just look at it yourself. This is what it looks like, okay? What is happening here? What in the world is going on? There is crazy aliasing. There are artifacts all over. There is noise and just some graininess to these images that look like it's everywhere. It's completely everywhere. Now, Landon was talking to me about how this could be a result of the heat waves. I know Unreal Engine 4 specifically has kind of a heat distortion plugin that you can use that makes things look a certain way, but usually only when there's fire. So anything behind this fire, or as the heat's rising, you'll see things warping and going up, and it can maybe have a similar effect to this. This could be that mixed with motion blur and aliasing, or who knows. Just a bunch of crazy problems. But even when you look over here, you don't see any fire. There's no reason that the heat distortion should be happening here, but you still see, and if I zoom in a little bit, even in the bottom right, you still see this. I mean, it looks crazy. It's scattering. There's just this crazy scatter. It looks like a problem with ray tracing, but I know that that's not how Unreal Engine 4 works. But this looks weird. It's not running at 1080p. At the very least, I can say this is not 1080p, or at least it's not supposed to be. They could be running through some up-res, some upscaling technique, but this looks weird. It just looks very, very strange to me. So I don't know if that's an issue with Unreal Engine 4 or if that's an issue with what they're trying to do with it, if they're pushing it too far, or if they just haven't quite figured out the right balance yet. But it's looking strange. And I would guess that we could be seeing some reasons for why this game, we haven't heard much about it. They could be having some serious issues here with getting it to look right. Because even when we look at this image, all right, it's better, right? It's cleaner. It looks much cleaner, but you're still getting a lot of that. I mean, you're still getting a lot of that noise, and it's very weird. Now, you're even seeing that, and I'll go into Kingdom Hearts 3 more at the end of this video, so I'm talking about Final Fantasy VII first, then I'll talk about Kingdom Hearts 3. But you're seeing it here as well. I just kind of want to point this out. That down here around Sora specifically, you see some weird grid patterns. You see some strange artifacting happen. You can see the outline of these rocks over here. I mean, it's happening here too. And of course, we know that Kingdom Hearts 3 and the Final Fantasy VII Remake are running the same engine. They're all running on Unreal Engine 4. And so because of that, I would say it might be just an issue with getting the engine to play nice with what they're trying to do. Cloud still looks really skinny. Look at his arms. I mean, his model, it doesn't appear to have changed that much. There was some speculation when that image was released at the Final Fantasy 30th anniversary event just a few weeks ago, that Cloud kind of looked a little bit different there, but honestly, it was an angle we hadn't really seen of him before, and it appears as though they haven't really done much with his model. He's looking about the same as before. One of the big things that Nomura talked about was grenades, and for some reason the grenades weren't working right, and I don't know exactly why. I can pull up the quote here, and unfortunately, he probably was speaking Japanese, and it was translated into French by this gaming blog, and we're getting the English translation of the French, which already in and of itself was a translation of the Japanese. So this may not be perfect here, but when he talks about grenades, he says, here's a new image of this game. I put a lot of tension into the combat system, and it's going to happen without interruption. So you're not going to go into battles. It'll be seamless, right? He says, in meetings, we've had a lot of problems with the grenades. Nomura also mentioned that allies won't take damage from grenades. Now, the reason I find that interesting is because when he says in the meeting, we've had a lot of problems with grenades. So my initial reaction is, oh, they're not getting grenades to work right. But they're talking about in their meetings, like as they talk amongst each other, that seems to be where these problems are happening. I think they aren't agreeing on exactly what these grenades should do in the first place. It also is possible that, there are some physics issues, or because battles are seamless. Obviously, he's talking about that kind of in the same paragraph here, at least the way it's put on this website, is that he's saying like, the battle system happens without interruption, but if you throw a grenade before the battle's been initiated, before the enemies have had time to target you, and you can maybe do away with some enemies that way before the battle even starts, that could also be a problem that they're still discussing. So at least what we know for sure is that the grenades aren't going to damage your friends, which I think is good because grenades bounce very unpredictably. I don't know, you can throw something, and especially since you're dealing with AI, right? And it's not exactly where I think it should be. So we've got Cloud throws a grenade, and for some reason, Barrett decides to run right into the middle of the battle and start shooting, right? Okay, now the grenade's going to blow him up, but that's not your fault, right? Because you didn't have control over that. So I can see that influencing their decision to make sure the grenades just don't, like, friendly fire is so difficult because it relies on the AI. And of course, in Final Fantasy VII, that was never a problem. And so it would be really strange for them to kind of add that in this game. So it's good to see that they're shying away from that. They're avoiding that completely. Something interesting that Mike talked about was in Final Fantasy VIII, when you have a limit break, when it's active, you press right on the D-pad and you can select your limit break. And that's what I'm seeing here. You've got your attack option. It'll turn into a list of items that you can do for your limit break, and depending on which one you do, you're going to see it's going to have different effect. It maybe can be done at more of a distance, or maybe he still needs to be closer. Maybe some just do more damage than others, and you can select it that way. In Final Fantasy VII, it was a little different, I guess. But at least in this one, it seems like you're going to have a menu, and you'll be able to just kind of select which one you do. And that's kind of a harkening back to Final Fantasy VIII, which is good. I know a lot of people here really like that game, and the systems in that game too. Differences between this and the older system are many and various. I mean, just look at it. Like they're clear. It's like night and day, right? It's clear. We know that the ATB is being implemented somehow, but based on what we saw of this battle system before, Cloud just kind of goes. He attacks. He's not waiting for anything. And as this limit, whatever this is, as this limit fills up, he can then do a different attack, or it turns red. I don't know if that means it's a special attack, or if that means when it turns red, he then has to back off and not attack for a while while that meter drains. That's a possibility as well. Instead of it going up and turning red and he can do a special attack, it goes up, turns red, and he can't attack anymore for a little bit. He needs to recover. And that is a little bit similar to how Final Fantasy 15 worked, right? But it does not seem to exist in the current version of the game. Instead, we have this ATB, which in effect may function similar to that. You can only do so many attacks at once, then you need to go recover for some period of time. So it can still function similarly, but my point is, the meter, it's different. It looks completely different, and especially with these 3 notches, it appears as though you can kind of save up on special attacks. So I think that's really cool. There's a ton of differences here. But for the most part, I mean, you've got your menus, and you've got your health bar and MP and HP and your limit break, and it seems pretty similar, and I think we've gone over just about everything else. One thing I just kind of wanted to note, so this text right here says Target ni kogeki o shimasu, and this text here says Target ni kogeki shimasu. They're different. They don't say the exact same thing. Now, one of the things Landon was bringing up was that these screenshots may not have been taken at the same time, right? This one may have been taken at an earlier or later time than this one, and so the having different text is kind of makes sense. But it is very strange to me that this one, they took out the particle o, and you'll see it right here between the kogeki and the shimasu. There's no particle here, and when you look at it here, you've got kogeki and shimasu, but then there's this o here. And so they're essentially saying the same thing, right? It says, attack the target. I mean, that's basically what it's saying, right? But the fact that they're written different, I felt it was worth bringing up. It may be nothing. It could just be they changed it and these screenshots were taken weeks apart. It could be nothing, but it also could represent that the text kind of like changes. It's slightly different. It's a little variable from depending on your situation. And specifically when we look at the old system right here, it says attack with equipped weapon. Now, this is obviously in English, but still, this is not what this says. They do not say the same thing. In English, in the one from a few years back, it said attack with equipped weapon. This says attack the target. They're different. They're not the same thing. And then even between attack the target and this one, still meaning essentially attack the target. It doesn't really change the meaning, but it's different. And so I just kind of wanted to point out the differences there. Okay, so this is Final Fantasy VII. These are all the differences that I could come up with. Now, this is a really good-looking game. It's got some problems, obviously, all around here. I don't know exactly what's going on here. It's having some issues with the engine, it looks like. You can especially see some anti-aliasing up here. You can see it pretty heavily on the railings and all sorts of artifacting and crazy issues. But when you look at it here, this is a more clean shot. There's not as much going on. It's the camera's kind of still. There's not explosions happening. There's not fire everywhere. There's just 2 people, Cloud and the enemy. It looks clean. It looks beautiful. It looks nice. This is where you can see the engine is absolutely shining, and everything just looks immaculate. Now, keeping this level of detail and this look of the image when this is happening, that's going to be a balancing act. That's going to be very difficult for them to do. But for the most part, this is looking like a very good game. It looks very nice. It does not look stock Unreal Engine 4. It looks like its own thing. They've customized, they've added their own flair, and it seems to be coming together very nicely. Now we're going to talk about Kingdom Hearts 3. Okay, this game is looking, it's shaping up, but it's shaping up to be so different from the other Kingdom Hearts that we've had before. I mean, I talked about destructible environments in Final Fantasy VII because Nomura mentioned it. He didn't say they would exist in Final Fantasy or in Kingdom Hearts 3. However, look at what's happening here, right? This guy just did an attack. These rocks go up. Now, if Kingdom Hearts 2.8 is any indication, or kind of some of the things that we've seen throughout most of the Kingdom Hearts games, this will go away. He attacks, rocks go up. They leave. They're not permanent, right? But they could be. They could be permanent, and that could change the whole dynamic of the battle. And I think that's really cool. I think it's a cool possibility, even if they don't, it depends on how exactly they utilize it. But the destructible environment possibility is there, all right? It's there, and it would be really cool if they could implement it, especially with a guy this big, swinging this huge, like, axe hammer thing. I mean, this looks awesome. It just looks, the scale, this is a huge enemy right here. I don't even know how you go about attacking it, unless Sora can hop as high as Aqua can in Kingdom Hearts, final chapter prologue, a fragmentary passage, right? She can jump like 30 feet in the air. So in that, if Sora can do that, then we're looking at, it's not so difficult. But it would be pretty cool if there was some alternate strategies in order to defeat enemies that are this size, that are this massive, and they could potentially do this much damage, not just to you, but to the environment. And how you can use that either in your favor. See some of these rocks rise up, like some of them are almost the height of Sora, right? All the way back here. You could jump on them and then continue to attack that way. So I don't know exactly how this is going to work, but I'm excited at the possibilities of what I'm seeing in this screenshot. The biggest thing that stuck out to me here, look at this. Sora's holding a shield. He's not holding a key. He's holding a shield. Now, Nomura talks about this a little bit, though. He goes into it at the beginning. He says, this is the first time we've shown a screenshot. It says this screenshot. I don't know. We talked about the translation of this whole interview. It may not be spot on, right? But he says, this is the first time we showed this screenshot of Kingdom Hearts 3. It's happening in Thebes, and they're fighting a new model of the Heartless. The Keyblade turns into a lot of things. Look at this. The Keyblade turns into a lot of things. Here it is a shield, but it can also be transformed into a chariot. This is called power form, okay? Now, power form I find very interesting because we already know in Kingdom Hearts there are form modes, right? And they help you in battle. They function similar to a limit break or something like that. And so looking at it here, it's like he's wearing different clothes, right? Now, I know people were speculating earlier that maybe Sora's outfit can be customized in a similar vein to the Birth by Sleep Kingdom Hearts .2 fragmentary passage, how she picks up clothes and you can kind of change the way she looks as we go. But the fact that Nomura is referring to this as power form, it kind of makes me think that Sora's kind of in like a drive mode. He's in a different type of form. His clothes change because of the form that he's using that is making his Keyblade change, if that makes sense to you. Now, I don't know exactly why. I don't know why he's wearing different clothes. I know how Kingdom Hearts 2 worked, and I know how a lot of the other games in the series have worked. It's possible just because he's using this special form that he's able to, his clothes change. But it's also possible that you can just dress him up in yellow clothes. And how cool would that be, right? It is possible that you can customize the way that Sora looks apart from whatever his Keyblade happens to be doing at that time. Now here it's turning into the shield, and I am seeing just, 1,000 possibilities here for what the Keyblade can now do, given its possibility. It can turn into a chariot. It can turn into all sorts of things. And so that is a huge, like, strategic, I don't know, it's a good way to introduce strategy into these games. Because now you can defend now. Like a shield isn't an attack heavy weapon. And if you're fighting something this big, yeah, you probably want to focus on defense because one hit from this hammer could do a lot of damage. But using the Keyblade as a shield is now an option. And that is freaking cool. So the Keyblade can turn into all sorts of things, and that adds a huge dynamic to the battles in Kingdom Hearts. They are going to be very different now, because the Keyblade is not just a blade. It can now be tons of different things. And hopefully you have control, over what it becomes and when and all of that. I can't imagine they'd kind of force a lot of this on you, but it is entirely possible that Sora goes to certain worlds and his key just kind of does things on its own and he doesn't really know why initially. That would seem very Kingdom Hearts-esque to me. But at least at some point during this game, being able to mix and match and choose when to shield and when to cut and when to have a chariot, I don't know what the other possibilities are. I mean, it could become a wand, a staff, just like what Donald has, and you can do more powerful magic, and then switch it to a shield as the enemy attacks, and then switch it to your Keyblade as the enemy's down, and just, slash your way and just do as much damage as you can. The strategic possibilities are very high with this new possibility that the Keyblade can now become different types of things. So kudos to Nomura or whoever thought of that, because that's freaking genius. So we've got the look of everything I'm seeing is very similar to Kingdom Hearts 2.8 Fragmentary Passage. It is looking very similar, almost the same. I mean, not quite. I mean, we got the focus bar here, the health and MP. Everything's looking pretty similar. He hasn't used MP, so I don't know how this is going to work, if it'll be the same as 2.8 or if it'll kind of function kind of like the first game, or I don't know exactly how that'll work. But this command menu is looking similar, and it's seeming as though it's going to shape up to be very similar to what Kingdom Hearts 2.8 was. And of course, we know that Fragmentary Passage was done in Unreal Engine 4, which is the same engine that this game's using. So there's a lot of potential for the similar things to what we've already seen happening in Kingdom Hearts 3, and I think that's great. If a system isn't broken, don't fix it. If it's working fine and if it's strong, then you don't have to revolutionize and keep changing things, kind of the way the Square Enix is doing with Final Fantasy. I like that Kingdom Hearts is able to kind of retain very similar fighting systems to what they've had in the games previous. I know they've made innovations here and there, and they've introduced things, like drive form or cards or whatever else they've done. But I do like that this is shaping up to be very similar to the games we've already played. So the learning curve shouldn't be as intense here. So this is the Colosseum, right? And we know that from the end of 2.8 that Sora goes to the Colosseum right after the events, after Mickey recounts the story of a Fragmentary Passage. And Sora shows up, and Riku and Mickey are already kind of off doing their own thing, with Kairi. And then Sora, Donald, and Goofy show up, and then they've got to go somewhere else apart from where Mickey, Kairi, and Riku went. But Sora decides to go to the Colosseum first. That's where he wants to go. And so we've got this scene here now that Nomura showed us, but I don't think this is from the first time we visit the Colosseum. Now, I don't know what Sora's health bar is going to look like at the very beginning of Kingdom Hearts 3. I doubt it's this long. That's just kind of, I know in the beginning of Fragmentary Passage, Aqua's health bar was already very long. Her magic bar was already super, super high. She was clearly, she starts out the game at level 50, I think. She is clearly doing just fine, right? But because of the end of that game and how, not Merlin, Yen Sid's talking to Sora about how he needs to start from scratch again. He kind of needs to rebuild up his skills from zero, essentially, so that he can work towards becoming a Keyblade Master. It makes me think that he's not going to start out at level 50 the way that Aqua did. He's probably going to start out with his health bar being a lot lower, which is, I think, how the game should start out. So this makes me believe not just the scale of the enemy he's fighting, which is huge, and probably won't come till the end of the Colosseum, stages, I don't know exactly when you'd fight something like this, but this seems like a more difficult thing to fight. This isn't the early stages of the Hercules world. This is likely later. And so we also see his health bar and his magic bar are quite high. I'm thinking this is mid to late game Colosseum, similar to Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. I would say that you could just about confirm that the Colosseum will function similar to how it functioned in those games, where you keep coming back. There's newer tournaments, there's harder enemies. As you progress through Kingdom Hearts 3, you will continually come back to the Colosseum to level grind or to participate in tournaments or to fight things like this. Who knows why he's here? Probably just part of the tournament. But it seems to me that Kingdom Hearts 2 is going to function, or Kingdom Hearts 3 will function similar to how 1 and 2 function in that regard. Now, we're still getting, I mentioned this before, but we're still getting the artifacting. I'll just go back and show it one more time. Look at this. I mean, look at this grid pattern. Look at this. I mean, it almost looks like individual pixels. It's not, but that's kind of what it's looking like here. There's some strange issues with the Unreal Engine 4 that I'm seeing all throughout this image. It's kind of happening around here. There's some aliasing. Now, I'm zoomed in pretty far, so don't get on me. I know that a lot of this is just the resolution of the image. But this grid pattern, these are artifacts. These are not supposed to be there. You could maybe argue that this is supposed to be like that. I don't know what the resolution is here. This doesn't appear to be exactly 1080, but you see that grid happening in his hair as well. And just kind of all around. In certain video games, that's expected. But it's just a little strange. And of course the game's not out. It's not even that close to coming out, I don't think. And so they've got plenty of time to fix it up. But I just kind of wanted to show you maybe some of the things that they are working on right now. And this could be one of them. That they're trying to get their shadow maps to work. They're trying to get a lot of the aliasing, and they're trying to make sure, they're trying to minimize the artifacts and stuff. And that's why the game, may not be ready. Aside from the fact that they apparently haven't even touched some of the entire worlds from Kingdom Hearts 3, according to Nomura. They're definitely working on that. But to get everything to function cohesively and to be a solid game, you got to fix all these little small things. And who knows if that'll end up being in the final game. But it's just a little thing I picked up on here. So there you have it. I mean, this is what Nomura showed. And despite me thinking as soon as I saw the screenshots, like, oh crap, he didn't show a video, he didn't show a trailer, he didn't give us a release date, come on. He gave us a lot. There's actually tons of info here, and you guys, let me know in the comments, for sure, because I'm sure I missed tons of stuff. As soon as I started looking, and all three of us, me, Mike, and Landon, we were all just comparing all these images, and we were looking at everything we could, trying to pick up on every little thing, and there's a lot here. So let us know what we missed, let us know what else we can look forward to based on these shots, but dudes, I'm excited. These screenshots weren't what we were looking for, but they were enough to where if you look at it for a while, it can still get you pumped up. It can still get you excited for what's going to happen. And like what with Final Fantasy VII as well, we don't know exactly what we're going to get, but we see that they're changing, this ATB bar being down here, right here saying ATB. We can see that they're implementing things that weren't initially there. And I think that's a plus. I think that's a positive thing that they at least seem to be changing and innovating and trying to implement some of the things we loved about the first game into this new modern action RPG era. It's not going to be exactly what you want, but you can't please everybody. And I do like at least that they are moving towards a place where they're innovating. They're not just doing the same thing. It's not just Kingdom Hearts battle system. It's not just Final Fantasy 15. They're changing it. They're working really hard trying to craft a game that we all can enjoy. And I'm looking forward to it personally. But there you have it. This has been a Dark Pixel News update. I'm Kason Sperry. Talk to me on Twitter. Write stuff in the comments. Just let us know. Let us know what we missed. Let us know what you're looking forward to in these games. I personally am looking forward to both of them, and I can't wait to see more. Peace out.